Somewhere under your feet right now, under the roads, the buildings, the entire weight of a modern city. There are machines keeping you alive. You just don't know it. And in Tokyo, that machine is unlike anything else on the planet. It sits 50 stories below street level. It stretches for miles in total darkness. And when a typhoon hits, when the rivers start to rise and the rain refuses to stop, it opens its mouth and drinks, not puddles, not runoff, entire rivers, hundreds of tons of water every single second, swallowed whole before it ever reaches the surface. Most people living above it have never heard of it. Tourists walk right over it. And yet, without it, large parts of one of the most densely populated cities on Earth would go underwater on a regular basis. This is the story of what humans build when nature leaves them no choice. To understand why something this extreme had to be built, you need to understand Tokyo's geography. The city sits on flat, low-lying land, threaded by rivers, pressed against the sea on one side and hemmed in by mountains on the other. Every year, typhoons roll in from the Pacific and dump enormous amounts of rain in a matter of hours. Those mountains catch the clouds and squeeze them hard over the exact ground where millions of people have built their lives. For much of the 20th century, that meant flooding. The same streets going under year after year, the same neighborhoods, the same families, hit by the same force with the same result. It wasn't a rare disaster, it was a cycle. And so Japan decided to break the cycle, not on the surface, but far beneath it. What they built is called the Metropolitan Area Outer Underground Discharge Channel. Engineers and locals call it GCANS. Construction started in 1992, took 16 years, and cost nearly $3 billion. When you step inside the main chamber, the first thing that hits you is the scale. 59 concrete columns rise toward a ceiling that feels impossibly high. The space stretches so far in every direction that it doesn't feel like infrastructure. It feels like a place of worship built by a civilization that never existed. The floor is flat and silent. The air is cool. And everything around you has been designed for one singular violent purpose. Here's how it works. When a storm arrives and the rivers begin to swell, water is diverted into 5 massive intake shafts, scattered across the region, each one wide enough to fit a space rocket standing upright. Those shafts feed into an underground tunnel, running nearly 7 kilometers, buried parallel to the Edo River. The tunnel carries everything into that central chamber, where 78 pumps, each one capable of draining a swimming pool in under 2 seconds, blast the collected water out into the Etagawa River and safely away from the city. 200 tons of water every second. Gone. Since the system came fully online in 2006, it has activated over 100 times. Flooding in the surrounding area has dropped by more than 70%. Neighborhoods that used to fill with water every rainy season haven't seen a flood since. And the people walking the streets above it, coffee in hand, late for work, have absolutely no idea, but water falling from the sky is only half of Japan's problem. The other half is what moves beneath the ground. Japan sits where 4 tectonic plates meet, pushed, pulled, and grinding against each other without pause. The country experiences around 1,500 earthquakes every single year. Most are too small to feel. The ones that aren't can be catastrophic. So Japanese engineers spent decades developing something that sounds almost contradictory. Structures designed not to resist an earthquake, but to move with it. At the base of modern buildings, massive pads made of layered rubber and steel absorb the motion from below, essentially floating the building off the ground so that when the earth shakes, the structure barely responds. In taller towers, giant counterweights, sometimes hundreds of tons, swing in the opposite direction of the building's movement, canceling out the force before it can do damage. Tokyo Skytree, the tallest structure in Japan, uses a central concrete core that flexes independently from the outer shell, the same principle found in traditional Japanese pagodas, which survived centuries of earthquakes through the exact same logic. The building can sway over a meter at its peak. From the outside, it looks perfectly still. It's not resisting the earthquake, it's dancing with it. Now travel west, across continents, to a country where the enemy isn't a typhoon or a tremor, it's the sea itself. A quarter of the Netherlands sits below sea level. Without human intervention, large sections of the country would simply be submerged. In 1953, a single night of storm surge broke through coastal defenses and killed nearly 2,000 people. The Dutch treated that night not as a tragedy to mourn, but as a problem to solve. What followed was the Delta Works, decades of construction that reshaped the entire southwestern coastline of the Netherlands. Dams, barriers, locks, and sluices were built across the river delta, controlling the flow of water and shielding the land behind them from the open sea. The centerpiece is the MOSE Landkering, two curved steel gates, each arm roughly the size of the Eiffel Tower on its side, that swing shut across a major waterway. When storm surge warnings are issued, the system is almost entirely automated. Sensors in the North Sea monitor water levels around the clock. When the readings cross a threshold, the gates move on their own, no human hand required. The Dutch know the sea better than almost anyone, and they know it doesn't stop. Their answer wasn't to build a wall and call it finished. It was to build something that could keep adapting, because the fight never ends, it only evolves. And then there is Venice. Few places on earth carry that kind of weight. Centuries of art, architecture, and history layered into a city built on water. The canals, the stone bridges, the palaces that have stood since the Renaissance. A city that feels, genuinely, like it exists outside of time. But Venice is sinking, the sea is rising, and several times a year, a phenomenon called acqua alta sends floodwater rushing through the streets, into the churches, beneath the doors of homes, across the marble floors of piazzas that have stood for 1,000 years. The response, completed after 17 years of engineering and more than 5 billion euros, is called MOSE, 78 hollow metal gates installed directly into the seabed at the 3 inlets, connecting the Venetian lagoon to the Adriatic. At low tide, they lie flat and invisible beneath the surface. When sea levels climb, compressed air is pumped in, and the gates rise one by one, forming a continuous barrier between the open ocean and the city. When they were tested for the first time in full operation in 2020, Venice stayed dry. Squares that had flooded for decades didn't take on a single centimeter of water. For the people who live there, it felt like something close to a miracle. For the engineers who built it, it was 17 years of work finally holding against the thing it was made to stop: the G-cans, the swaying towers, the gates of the Netherlands. The hidden flaps beneath Venice, none of them are famous the way great things usually are. They don't appear on postcards. You won't find them on a tourist map. They exist underground, underwater, inside walls, doing their work in silence, activating in the dark, protecting millions of people who will never see them. We admire the things that reach for the sky, but maybe the most extraordinary things humans have ever built are the ones we buried, the ones designed to wake up only when everything else is at risk. The next time a storm passes through your city, and the streets are dry, and the lights stay on and life continues like nothing happened, think about what might be running beneath you. Something is. You just can't see it.